We're alive.
We're alive.
Welcome back, everybody, to Devils Down Under. It's been a few weeks.
Yeah. We missed a week, and we're a little bit late with this one.
Yes, work has been kind of up our butts lately, so it's been about 17 days since we've last done an episode, and like you said, we're a little behind this week as well, so apologies for that, everybody, but life sometimes gets in the way, but we're still around, we're still doing episodes, and here we are. It has been not so great of a last few weeks.
Yeah. I mean, yes, work has been kicking our asses, but it doesn't help that the Devils haven't been playing well and making it, it just kind of doesn't inspire podcasts, does it?
No, it's never fun to talk about a team when they are, or to talk about your team when they're, I don't want to say the Devils are bad. They're not bad, but when they're not playing well. Mm. And, yeah, it's been a tough couple of weeks. We've got a lot to talk about. Instead of doing our normal game recaps that we normally do, we're going to kind of just skim through the scores and the results of the game since we last recorded, and then talk about some more underlying issues with the team, and maybe some trade targets going forward that the Devils might want to start looking into, as opposed to going down each and every game, period by period. Otherwise, we would probably be here for 2 hours. So,
and you guys all know what's been happening, and it's not so fun recapping the games that haven't gone well. But we'll recap what hasn't gone well, but we don't need to get into the nitty gritty of everything. That just kind of sucks.
Yeah. So, I guess the first little area that we should get caught up on is Guess That Devil, since it's been a couple of weeks. So
yeah,
we're gonna definitely need a render for what the original
I did
clue
actually
was.
Post this one. It may have taken me a couple of days, but I did actually post this one. So this one was that this Devil was drafted 113th overall by Detroit Red Wings in 1985 and played 10.5 seasons with us before he was traded. He was quite physical and was known for his high slap shot, but didn't get many points in his first couple of seasons.
Okay, so this one would have been easier if I knew the position of the player, but you did not give that to us this week. So I did some thinking about this initially, and then we got sidetracked with everything going on. So I had to kind of recalibrate my brain and try and remember what the original clue was. I'm not 100% confident on this, but I was trying to think of players that were drafted in the in the mid 80s. I couldn't really come up with anybody specific that was drafted by Detroit. My memory is not that good. I mean, I don't have any memory of it. It wasn't.
You also weren't alive, yeah.
Yeah, but with that being said, players that played for us for 10 years or more than 10 years, I guess in this case, and were drafted in the mid-'80s, and it was also a mid-round pick. You said, what was it, 113th overall?
113th, yeah.
Yeah. All right, so I think that this is Randy McKay.
Yes, you got it.
All right. Nice.
Yeah, so he was a winger. I had been deciding not to put whether they were forward or defense for most of them because I didn't want it to give away, especially if some of them are going to be more obvious. I didn't necessarily want to put that in, but if you want me to start putting that in, I can. I just do try and be a little bit cryptic. I also said he didn't get many points in his first couple of seasons, and I didn't clarify that that was his first couple of seasons in the NHL, not necessarily with the Devils. I believe that was with Detroit. He didn't get many points. Once he came to us, he got plenty of points. But yeah, only 17 points in his first 2 seasons in the NHL.
Yeah, he joined the Devils in, I believe, was it 1990?
Something
or 1991, something like that. It was the early 90s. I can't remember the exact year that he joined the Devils, but he was...
Yeah, 91. 91, 92.
91. Okay. I do remember that he was given to the Devils as compensation for, I believe, the Red Wings had signed Troy Crowder, and back then McKay was awarded to the Devils as compensation for that. So, and then Crowder actually ended up only playing like a dozen games or something for the Wings, so it didn't work out too well for them. But
yeah, so yeah, my little facts about Randy: he made quite an impact with the Devils despite his slow start with Detroit. He's mostly known for his the winning goal against the Flyers in the '95 Eastern Conference Finals, and that led us to the Cup. And he was also on our 1999-2000 Stanley Cup winning team. He teamed up with John Madden in 2000 to each score 4 goals against the Flyers in a 9-0 victory. That hadn't happened since 1922, so that was cool. And he was also part of the trade for Jamie Langenbrunner and Joe Nieuwendyk.
Yep, so, sure was.
There you go. Randy McKay, everyone. I think someone did respond to our my tweet, and they did get it correct.
Nice. All right, so that was this week's Guess That Devil. A little bit more difficult
good
than previous weeks. I was going to make a comment on the position thing. I don't think giving their position is necessary. I told you this earlier before we started recording, but the only time that maybe I could understand maybe throwing it in there if it's really obscure is like some of these players from like the 70s or the 80s. But I mean, it's been working fine without it, so it's okay. It was just fun because I was like, crap. I'm like, she didn't say what position he played, and I'm like,
you asked me.
Doesn't help.
You asked me before we started recording, and I said, I mean, I could tell you, but I also feel like that wouldn't be fair because the listeners didn't get that part of the clue. So,
you know what? Podcaster's advantage. Damn it! No, I'm just kidding.
It's my game. I make the rules.
I suppose so. All right, we have a lot to get to this week.
Serious business.
It has not been a particularly pleasant last couple of weeks for Devils fans. We have been dealing with injuries. Obviously, the big one was Jack, who I want to say fell into the boards, but fall doesn't feel like it does it justice for just how hard he hit the boards. Yeah, he crashed pretty hard into the boards, and when it first happened, I said to you, "Oh, that's a concussion." I said right away, "That's a concussion." And it looked like it was a concussion because on replay, it looked like he was holding the side of his head, like where his temples are. And I said, "Oh man, that's not a good sign. That's bad." With Nico's got a assumed concussion, and now Jack, and we all know how concussions are. They're very unpredictable, and there's no set timeline for these sorts of things. Despite what some people on Twitter will tell you, there is no set time frame for concussions. So, but it turned out it was his shoulder, and I believe it was the opposite shoulder that he injured.
Yeah, it was his right shoulder as opposed to his left shoulder.
Yeah.
At least as far as from what we saw him crashing into the boards, he hit his right shoulder. So
he went back out, did the same exact thing as Nico. He went back out. The Devils got a power play on that because that was a weird play where Jack went into the boards. And actually, no, did the Devils get it? Yeah, they got a power play shortly, like basically right after that. And I think if there hadn't been a power play, they might not have sent him right back out there. But for whatever reason, they sent him back out there. I think he did one shift on the power play.
Yeah.
And then he was done. He went down the tunnel after that. So he missed, was it a total of 5 games?
Yeah. It was, 5 games.
Okay. He missed a total of 5 games. So in those 5 games, the Devils had 1 win, I believe.
2 wins.
Chicago
and Pittsburgh.
And Pittsburgh. Yeah, Pittsburgh. Yeah, because he didn't play against Pittsburgh.
And 3 losses.
We still don't know what the situation on Nico is, other than he's out with a, quote, upper body injury that we all pretty much know is a concussion of some form. They had him in the press box for the one of our home games. I don't remember which home game it was.
I think it was Washington.
Might have been the Washington game, yeah. So he's alive, but we don't know anything else beyond he's still out. And the timetable on his return is basically just up to how long he's symptomatic, I would imagine. So we miss him dearly, especially his two-way game with how the Devils have been playing defensively in most of these games. His game is sorely, sorely missed.
Yeah, and judging by his face in that press box, he is not happy that he is out.
I mean, him and Jack both look miserable up in that press box.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair,
both up there.
The game that we were playing was also miserable. Let's be real. So it doesn't surprise me that they were probably watching the game and going, I wish we could be out there. We would be making a difference kind of thing. Must suck to see your teammates playing like that. And not be able to do anything about it, especially as the captain and not assistant captain, alternate captain. But yeah.
And those two are not the only ones, because in the game against Pittsburgh, Meyer was also hurt. He something lower body. He did play more in that game. It wasn't a situation where he went off the ice and then didn't play another shift. He did continue to play. But then after the win in Pittsburgh, he did not practice the following day. He came out on the ice before practice, and I guess he skated around, but he didn't actually practice. And then they announced that he was a game-time decision against the Rangers today. And right before the game, they announced that he will not play. He did not play in tonight's loss to the Rangers. Nosek was also re-injured in the game against the Rangers. So at the moment, we've got Meyer, Hischier, Nosek, all out with injuries. I don't think I'm forgetting anybody, right?
Those are the main ones. We've got Nico Dawes out with his hip injury and Nolan Foote out with his upper body, and then Hallinan is also out with the lower body.
Foote doesn't sound like he is going to be back anytime soon. I don't know what's going on with him, but
no. I will say as well,
Miller is back.
Meyer is technically undisclosed, not lower body or upper body. Just technically undisclosed.
One of the Devils beat reporters yesterday classified it as lower body. I can't remember if it was Amanda or Ryan or...
Yeah, just what's being reported on everything online on it's showing as undisclosed day to day, but they're always kind of vague with these things, of course.
Yes, one of the most frustrating things about hockey and the NHL, well, the NHL specifically, they are very vague with injuries. We've talked about this before. I get it, but at the same time, as a fan, it's quite frustrating. So, Devils have been hit with the injury bug early this season, and although it's not entirely the reason why they have been off to a slow start, it's a big part of it.
Yeah.
And not having guys like Jack and Nico and Timo in the lineup is
devastating.
Those are blows. Yeah, those are blows that very few teams could work through.
Yeah.
So I suppose if this is going to happen, I would rather it happen early in the season, and maybe these guys can get healthy and get back out there, and then we can kind of get it out of our system and move on. But as it stands right now, the Devils are banged up, and a lot of that has been a result of the Devils get bodied.
Yeah.
And this has been a little bit of a concern for me this year, is the lack of physicality in the Devils lineup. And I don't just mean the lack of size, because, we have guys like Kevin Ball and guys like Timo Meyer. But I said to you earlier when we were watching the Rangers game, it really does feel like at times that the Devils are being targeted out there. And I'm not saying that like teams are out there headhunting the Devils, and the teams are necessarily bodying the Devils in a malicious way per se, but it does certainly feel like that the game plan against the Devils is to be as physical as possible, and so far it's proving to be a somewhat successful strategy, because the Devils have really struggled to overcome it.
Yeah, I don't blame them for choosing physicality against us, considering we are not known to be a very physical team. That being said, I do wonder about the safety of that when it comes to the fact that our guys are getting injured a lot. And I know it's to a certain extent, injuries are inevitable in sports, obviously, but
that Luke hit in that was it Washington, the Washington game, where he took that really nasty hit. But he took a really bad what I consider a board, and
That
it looked
crunch
eerily.
sound.
Yeah, it looked eerily. Well, I mean, it was a hit from behind on a defenseless player. That was a weird play because Timo also got high sticked on that play, and I think that's what set up the Devils
On a
to
power,
have. Oh yeah, we had like a 7-minute power play, and we basically just didn't capitalize on it. We ended up committing a penalty ourselves, which took 2 minutes off of it and made it a 4-on-4. And yeah, I mean, the Devils are getting thrown around a little bit, and what's frustrating for me as a fan watching these games is that there seems to be, with a few exceptions like Haula and occasionally Timo, there seems to not be much of a response on the Devils. I don't see a lot of guys stepping up when and getting in opposing players' faces when these hits are being laid out. And
yeah.
I hesitate to say that it's affecting the team mentally at this point because I don't really think the mental aspect of the game is really aside from the defensive woes, which we'll get to. I don't think that I don't think it's a confidence thing necessarily because as the games have progressed, like tonight, for example, it didn't look like the Devils weren't playing confident hockey. They're just still making the same mistakes over and over again, coupled with bad goaltending, which we will also get to here in a minute.
I think it's one of those things where the more you're getting hit, whether or not you're injured from it, and I say injured in terms of like getting taken off the ice injured, you're still getting banged up, you're still getting shaken, and that can affect your play. You still might be dealing with niggly bruises or, that kind of thing, which just irritate you underneath your pads, and then that can be causing issues. And not pads, you know what I mean.
It can also be a momentum shifter. How many times have we seen a big hit change the momentum in a game?
Yeah. You have to get up and shake it off, and then go back to playing like 100% hockey. It's a little bit difficult when you're a bit battered.
Yeah, I don't know what the solution to that is. Obviously, missing Timo affects our ability to be physical quite a lot, and hopefully he will only miss a game or two. It didn't seem like it was something super serious, but I've said that before, and then a guy has been out for 2 months, so
yeah.
Yeah.
Today they put Lazar and Haula on Jack's wings, I think, as a try and maybe protect him a little bit.
I that's what I assume it could be. And obviously I'm not a fan of Lazar being a first-line winger. He is not a first-line player. But with that being said, I actually thought that they played pretty well tonight. That line of Hall, Hughes, and Lazar looked really good. Obviously, long-term going forward, do we want Lazar on the first line? No, we do not. But
no.
I certainly don't think that they were an issue in tonight's loss to the Rangers. So speaking of which, let's just do a quick rundown of the results of all of the games that occurred while we took a little bit of a break here. So on November 3rd, the Devils played St. Louis, lost that game 4-1. On the 5th, we played Chicago and won that game 4-2. On the 7th, we played Colorado, lost 6-3. On the 10th, played Washington, lost 4-2. On the 14th, played Winnipeg, lost 6-3. On the 16th, played Pittsburgh, won 5-2. And tonight, the 18th, played the Rangers at home and lost 5-3. I'm starting to notice a little bit of a trend in all of these games. And let's see. Goals given up in these games. 5, 6, 4, 6. Or sorry. 5, 2, 6, 4, 6, 2, 4. So not a single game that they have. I don't think we have had a single game this season where we've only given up one goal. We don't have any shutouts. No. I know that. And I don't think we had a single game this year where we have only given up a single goal. Every game we've given up at least 2. Now, giving up 2 goals in a game isn't that big of a deal. A goals against per game of 2 is excellent. But there's lots of 4s, lots of 5s, a couple of 6s in there. Now, granted, quite a few of those games, those 6 goal, or I think in all of those games, both those games, the 6th goal was an empty netter.
Yeah, and the 5th as well on today's one.
Yeah. So, God, I don't even know where to begin. I guess the question that I wanted to present, the main question that I wanted to present for this episode, is what is the pressing issue at the moment? Is it defense or goaltending? And I have my answer. I'm curious what your answer is. But mine, I think if you were to ask me this question the first 5 games in the season, I would have said defense. I think it's pretty clear now that the primary issue on this team is goaltending, and it's a big problem. It's not just a little nagging issue. It's a major problem that is now costing this team games that they should be winning.
Yeah,
including tonight. So, yeah, goaltending has been bad, and I think that's the pressing issue. I don't know. Of the two, what do you think the team needs to address more right now, defense or goaltending?
I mean, obviously, the easy answer is both. Both have been bad for different reasons.
With that being said, I do feel like the defense has been a little bit better lately.
Yes, defense has been a bit better lately. I've been glad that Lindy has been slightly changing up the lines, or he did in one game, for defense. So, because everyone was saying, like, you know, with defense being bad, it's time to try and switch things up a little bit. But Smith has felt like he, at least in this game, it felt like he played better, the game against the Rangers today. So yeah, I think at this point it's goaltending. Looking at our stats, our goaltending is the 4th worst in the league at this point.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Yeah. It's not good.
No, it's been a big problem.
I know that I love V in terms of how he presents himself as a person off the ice, but it's been really frustrating seeing him seeing him give up rebounds and
he's had no rebound
goals.
control. I was just going to say that. He's had no rebound control this year at all. And I know that it was a little bit of an issue last year, but it's worse this year. Like, there have been so many instances where it's a puck. It feels like it's like center, like center body, center pads, and it's the puck still finds a way to be squirting around in the crease for an extra second or two.
Yeah.
And rebound control and puck control in and around the crease has been bad. Both on the goaltending side and on the defensive side.
And on the defensive side as well, leaving the back door open as well. Like, I know that V also, and I'm saying V because he's been playing the majority of the games, but Schmidt has also been a little bit like this as well. Leaving that back door open and trying to get across for people that are sitting in the back. They've been letting in goals like that, but defense has also got to be there to try and close that gap as well. Yeah, it's been frustrating.
In those situations, the defense job is to clean up the puck, to just get it out by any means necessary. That doesn't involve getting a delay of game penalty. So as long as you don't shoot it over the glass, just get it out, right?
Yeah.
And it feels like the Devils are just like allergic to clearing the puck. I don't.
It seems like they
were so good at it for large stretches last year, and I don't know what the issue is this year.
It feels like they're all crowding on the player, and you said this earlier, they're all crowding on the player that has the puck and leaving the 3 other players on the ice open.
There's so many instances where there is, and we're not talking about like 4th line plugs like tonight, for example. And I mean, there was at least 3 occasions where Panarin was basically wide open in the high slot or right center. Like, you have got to know where these types of players are on the ice at all times, or you're going to get killed. They're going to kill you. And that's exactly what happened tonight. And that's what's happened to the Devils all season long, with a few exceptions.
But the other thing that's frustrating to me is, like, you know that Panarin's going to get those kind of goals. And you can try and work against it and try and protect against it because you know that's what he's going to do. But it's also really frustrating seeing teams, particularly players, score goals that don't get points. You see Jimmy Vesey.
It happened tonight, Vesey, yeah.
Tonight. He has, 2 goals this entire season so far, which obviously isn't that far into the season, but he got 2 tonight.
He doubled up his goal total tonight against us, yep.
Yeah, and then in the Avs game, Wood, who we know from our experience, gets all these breakaways and can't score on them, scored on us.
Gets his first breakaway of the game and scores on it. I was like, oh, how perfect.
And then one of the other games, it was someone's first goal in the NHL. Like, we've been letting in these goals from players who aren't known for their goal scoring, and
go ahead.
It's just frustrating.
There are 2 truths to being to the New Jersey Devils. One, if we're playing a rookie goalie, we're going to make them look like a prime Dominic Hasek.
Mm-hmm.
And 2, if we're playing against a team that has a former New Jersey Devil, that player is almost certainly going to score.
Yeah.
It happened to us. I swear to God, it has happened to us every single year since I can remember. I can remember it a while back with Kyle Palmieri when we traded him to the Islanders. And
I know there's a certain extent.
And then the first time that we played them, he scored. It was like, of course.
Yeah. I know there's a certain extent of, well, they know, if it's the same coach particularly, they know roughly what the strategy is, so they might be able to score on that, but still.
Yeah, but I feel like, this is obviously like, I have no idea how you would track this, but I would be really curious to see if the Devils lead the league in former players scoring against them, because it certainly feels like that we do.
Yeah.
And I don't know. It's
but then maybe that's just because we focus on those players when they're on the ice, and we don't necessarily pay attention when it's the other.
Yeah, but it really does
teams.
Feel like that every time we're playing someone. Yeah, that is a former Devil that they score.
You and I were joking earlier about how when we go up to play the the Sharks in a couple of weeks' time,
Blackwood's gonna have a shutout. He's gonna have like a 50-save shutout.
Yeah, we said they're gonna put Blackwood in the goal against us, and he's gonna shut us out or something like that because he couldn't play well for us necessarily, and now
Well, he's had a rough. He's not having a great season in San Jose, and we'll get to him in a few
but that
minutes
means he's going to shut us out.
Yeah, exactly. So, yeah. Well, and we're going to get into some maybe potential goalie targets here in a few minutes. But you mentioned Lindy a few minutes ago, and how he finally did start shake things up after the Winnipeg loss, and. Last week, Ryan and oh my goodness, forgive me,
James.
Yes, thank you. Ryan and James, 2 of our beat reporters, held a Twitter space, and we joined, and we had a brief little chat with them.
They were so excited to have an Australian talk, and it was like, well, first of all,
I know,
an Australian in this, but also it was you talking to them. You had to
Sorry, guys. I'm the boring American here. Hate to break.
Next time I'll join in, and it'll be a female and a Kiwi, and they'll be real shocked.
They'll probably just think you're Australian, to be honest. They're probably not even going to pick up on the fact that it's a Kiwi accent and not an Australian accent. But
that's all right.
But anyway, yeah, we had a chance to talk to them about some of the issues, and this was last week. So this was I think after the. Was it maybe going into? I think it was going into the Washington game by chance. I can't remember. But anyway, and one of the things. So one the question that I posed to them initially was, what's been going on with guys like Siegs and Marino. Now Marino, to his credit, has been worlds better the last 4 or 5 games. He's looked like the old John Marino again.
And today's game, I didn't see Siegs necessarily make a massive mistake.
Yeah, I'm still not super impressed with his play lately.
I didn't notice him, so at least it wasn't terrible. But you go for it.
We were talking about how it just seems like if you take the system out of it, the defensive system out of it, and you take pairings out of it, right, and you just look at individual performances in a vacuum. I said that it just looks like Siegs specifically is slower. Like it looks like he's having a hard time keeping up with the system that we play and the players that are on the ice, which we did not see last year. And so we talked about that, and they said something interesting in that conversation. In that, I can't remember if it was Ryan or James, but I think it was Ryan who said that, they've talked about, when they've asked Lindy in either post game or pre game pressers, why, how come despite the defensive struggles, we're looking at the same defensive pairings the last 3-4 games straight or whatever. And they said that sometimes Lindy just looks at him like with a deer in the headlights look, like what are you talking about?
Yeah,
and it's
he hasn't noticed.
Yeah, well, yeah, and like what do you mean change the pairings up? Like, this is my frustration with Lindy, and I call it the love-hate. It's a love-hate relationship. and I feel like a lot of Devils fans kind of share this sentiment with Lindy. Lindy's offensive system, especially, but Lindy's system in general, when it's working, it's beautiful to watch. When everything is clicking and and everyone's firing on all cylinders, it's quite an entertaining and an efficient and exciting style of hockey to watch.
Mm-hmm.
Lindy has, from my perspective, he overreacts and also doesn't react at the same time. I'll give you an example. Alexander Holtz, who, for all intents and purposes, this was the year that he was supposed to, that we expected him to come in. He's still a rookie, obviously, but and show us what he's got. Like, this is the year that he can show the league what he's got.
Yeah.
And has he been elite, or has he been, an exceptional player? No, he is not. But I swear, Lindy has treated Holtz through large chunks of this season like he peed in his cereal.
Yeah, he's certainly, just through how he talks about him and the fact that he's been keeping him, other than the last couple of games, he's been keeping him on the bottom lines, and like the limited amount of ice time and benching him at times, that kind of thing. It seems like he's punishing him at times.
And I don't know why. Like, he gives every shift he's out there, I see him giving 100%. Now, has he made some mistakes on the defensive end, or has he not back-checked as hard as maybe they would like? Yeah, of course. But he's also a slightly undersized shoot-first forward. He's not every single play. I understand that nobody likes lazy forwards who don't want to back-check.
Mm-hmm.
I also understand that a forward that scores a buttload of goals can kind of get away with that, right? Like, nobody ever really criticized. Well, I shouldn't say nobody criticized. Nobody talked about Ovechkin's complete lack of defensive game when he's scoring 50 or 60 goals a year, right? Like, it doesn't matter. He scored fucking 60 goals. Who cares, right? Or he scored 55 goals. Who cares? But Holtz is not a 50 or 60 goal scorer, so I understand the mindset. However, with that being said, not every player has to be a completely 100% responsible, defensively responsible player. That's what your defensemen are there for, and that's what your centers are supposed to be there for as well.
Should be there for.
Or should be there for, yeah, exactly.
But also, we talked about in the off-season whether or not Holtz should be in the top 6 or not, and obviously we weren't necessarily sure, but with everything that's been going on the last couple of weeks, particularly, we've been saying, why not switch up the lines? Why not try and put him in the top 6? And these last 2 games, I think it's the last 2 games, he has been in the top 6 lines.
He wasn't in the. No, he was third line tonight.
Third line tonight.
He played some top 6. He played second line in the Winnipeg game, I believe, and he played. I can't remember if he was third line in the Pittsburgh game or not, but either way, they basically gave him like 25 minutes of top 6 minutes, and now third line's better than the fourth. I never liked him on the fourth line, although he did score a goal immediately after being demoted to the fourth line. So for a hot minute there, it looked like, oh, okay, well, maybe Lindy is a secret hockey 4D chess genius, but. I have said before, and I will continue to say that I think Holtz needs to be in a top 6 role to succeed, or at the very least shouldn't be on the fourth line, maybe top 9. But I understand that there's definitely the argument that he hasn't necessarily earned top 6 minutes. And I'm still kind of on the fence about that. But like, this is what I'm talking about, like, in terms of frustrations with Lindy. Okay, he had a quote last week. He was asked about Holtz and his playtime, because Holtz had basically said he wasn't a dick about it, and he wasn't like whining or complaining or anything, but he made a comment in an interview where he said, sometimes I don't play a lot, and which is true, and I think Lindy was asked about his play after that, as a kind of as a result of that, and he made I don't remember the exact quote, but he basically made some comment about how, if guys want more ice time, then they shouldn't get scored on, which is implying that every time Holtz is out there, the Devils get scored on, which A, is not true, and B, even if it were true, and here's my primary issue with Lindy. If that's the bar that you're setting, then why is Brendan Smith, who is basically a pylon out there, aside from his decent penalty killing? I have never seen a defenseman so bad at 5v5 but still be able to be a solid penalty killer. It's the strangest thing. But then why the hell is Brendan Smith still out there every single game, despite the fact that almost every game he takes a stupid penalty, or almost every game makes a stupid mistake that leads to a goal, or at very least leads to an odd man rush, or leads to a quality scoring chance, something to the effect of that, right?
Still, also paired with Luke, who is still figuring that sort of stuff out too.
I fucking hate that pairing. I do not understand why Luke is still anchored to Smith.
Yeah.
My hope is that with Miller now being healthy again, and he's been playing fairly well the first two games back. He had a great game against Pittsburgh. That means Smith will kind of slowly be edged out of the lineup, but I don't know does Smith have like blackmail on Lindy or something? I don't understand. Like, there's no consistency with this. On one hand, Holtz is not out there because he doesn't back check enough, and he gets scored on, and the implication is he doesn't play enough defense, whatever. But then you've got a defenseman out there who is horrible at every facet of the game, with the exception of penalty killing. And every single game he's out there. I don't think he's been scratched a single game this season.
No.
Now, granted, I know we had injuries. We had injuries with Miller, and then even if we wanted to call up Nemec for a while, we couldn't because he was hurt. But like, if the messaging is going to be that guys need to not get scored on to get more time, well, then why are the defensemen that are getting scored on the most out there every single game?
Yeah, and it was just frustrating because we had that one game, literally one game, where he changed the defensive pairings and he put Luke with Dougie, and it was like, why? It kind of felt like he was kind of like, oh, you fans want me to change the pairings? I'm going to change the pairings, but when it doesn't work, I'm changing them right back, which is what happened.
Sorry, go ahead.
But yeah, why put Luke with Dougie? Because that's not going to work generally either, because neither of them are massively defensively responsible. I actually wouldn't say that anymore. I thought that initially, but given how Luke has played defensively lately, the only thing I can think of is that maybe Luke is out there to try and provide even more offense with Dougie, but also kind of cover for some of Dougie's, for lack of a better word, Dougie's Douginess.
Yeah, because let's be real, he's not the best defensive defenseman in the world. He's not exactly the best defender, but
no, he's been disappointing lately.
Well, I wouldn't say he's still putting up points. Dougie's game is very, very well masked when he is helping facilitate ozone entries and he is helping drive play on the offensive side. And it's very glaringly hurtful when he's not, because he's not bringing a whole lot to the defensive side of the game. So when he's not scoring and when he's not contributing to scoring, and when he's going through lulls where he's not contributing to the offensive rush and puck movement, then it's more obvious. This season, his scoring pace is a little less torrid than last year, but he's still on a pretty good pace, I feel. So originally I thought the same thing, but now I kind of almost wonder if maybe that was the thought. But that only lasted a couple of games, and now Luke is back with Smith again.
I think it was just the one game.
I think he was with Smith. Oh, you mean with Hamilton? Yeah, I think it was just the one game. Yeah. I Smith needs to go. He didn't have a terrible game tonight, although the expectation for this team shouldn't be, well, he wasn't terrible. The expectations are higher all around. We are no longer in a situation where, well, he's not terrible. No, that's everyone needs to be contributing at this point. There are very high expectations on this team, And the team is too talented, even with injuries, to be playing this poorly in one specific area of the game.
Yeah. At what point do you think it would be time to bring Nemitz up?
I don't know. I was a defender of him spending some more time in the AHL this year at first, but the more that I watch this team play and the more that I watch the depth continuously be challenged through injuries and all that and poor play, I do wonder if maybe it was a mistake and maybe he should have I mean, it's pretty clear with how Smith has played that Nemec, a fucking bare bones, green as grass rookie, would probably still be better than Brendan Smith. Because like the whole argument with Brendan Smith is that he's a veteran, right? And like, oh, you pair Luke with a veteran, and like, okay, well, that only goes so far. I don't care if he's played for 6 months or 6 years, if they're not playing well. Like that shouldn't matter at a certain point. That shouldn't matter anymore. And I don't know. I don't know if it's time to pull the trigger on Nemec yet, just because the defense has been better lately. It still hasn't been great, but it has been improving. So, I still think Nemec probably does improve it, though. At least in terms of, I don't know if he improves the team defensively, but he probably improves the team in terms of puck movement, which generally isn't a problem for the Devils, except there have been a few instances this year where, guys just can't seem to stay on their skates. Passes,
can't stay on their skates, or it goes between their skates.
Passes have been in the skates instead of on the tape. Yeah. I don't know. Everything just seems to still be a little off, a little out of sync, and that's even if we don't take the injuries into consideration. Mercer's had a really slow start. He's been better the last few games as well. So again, there's a lot of signs that the team is kind of starting to get through this slump a little bit, slowly, but it gets into the other half of this, which is the goaltending. Now that the defense is kind of starting to not look as terrible as they did the first week and a half, 2 weeks of the season, the goaltending just continues to kill us. It's been bad. I don't think V or Schmid have had a good game probably since the Chicago win. No, sorry. Against was it V that played against Pittsburgh, right?
Yes.
Yeah. He was okay against Pittsburgh. But it's been consistency. They'll have an okay game, and then they'll go right back to looking bad again. And it's these leaky goals.
Yeah, he'll get some. They'll both get some amazing saves that are almost like save of the year candidate material almost.
It happened tonight.
And then they'll let through this little pissy goal. And I know we can say that that also happened with Igor Shesterkin tonight. He let in a couple of leaky goals that ordinarily he wouldn't let in. But it's just really frustrating when you see those go in and you go, yep.
Yeah, but the difference is Shesterkin locked it down in the end. He had a little bit of a shaky start, and then he looked like regular old Shesterkin by the end of that game. Whereas V didn't. He started out a little and then he had I thought he had a really strong second period. And like the first 7, well, actually probably more than that. I would say the first 10 minutes, 10, 15 minutes of the third. I mean, this was a game tonight. This was a game. The Devils led 3-2 and they lose 5-3. They give up the goal late, with 3.5 minutes left. Or no, sorry, the tying goal was before that. The tying goal was with 7 or 8 minutes left or something like that. And then they give up the game-winning goal with 3 minutes left. And the game-winning goal was a goal that shouldn't have. Once again, one of these goals that just shouldn't have happened. Horrible rebound. The puck just goes squirting right out, right to a fucking Ranger. I don't want to say that it was a mistake to not trade for a goalie in the offseason, because there's a million and one things that go into that, right? The Devils shouldn't necessarily be selling the farm and some quality players on the roster just to get a goalie that may or may not fit here.
Especially when a lot of the goalies on the table are in their 30s now.
Yeah, that's the other thing, too, is that where are you going to find a quality young goalie that is available on the market? It almost never happens. I mean, let's take a look at, let's take a look at some of the goalies that the Devils could have maybe acquired this offseason or could maybe still acquire, right? So we're looking at, well, let's start with Akira and V.
Yeah.
VTech is at sit currently. This is not taking tonight's game into account. Tonight, specifically, V, I believe, let in 1.65 more goals above expected, which means given the quality of shots that he faced and the situation in which those shots occurred, he basically gave up almost 2 goals more than he should have. On the season, he's sitting at basically 3 goals. He's given up 3 goals more than expected. 2.8. Akira's sitting at 2.4. But honestly, it feels like more than that. Like, even though that is, if you look at goalies that have played at least 6 games, that puts them in the bottom, basically the bottom 10. There are 51 goalies this season that have played at least 6 games. Akira Schmid and Vitek Vanacek are 42 and 43rd, respectively.
Yeah.
And if you rank it by goals saved above expected. So they're unequivocally 2 of the worst goalies in the league this year in terms of goals saved above expected. That's a bad spot for any team to be in when both your starter and your backup are playing that poor. I mean, Carolina. Look at Carolina; they're basically in the same situation we are. They're having They're having bad goaltending, and the defense has been kind of and they're sitting pretty much right in the same spot that we're sitting in right now.
And previously, when this was the case, we brought up Dawes for a couple of games, but we can't do that because he's injured.
Yeah, I don't think the solution is internal at this particular juncture. That could change.
No.
But I don't think the solution is internal. I think it's external. And I mean, if we look at guys like let's say the goalies that the Devils probably logically would have most likely targeted, or at the very least, the goalies that probably would have been available for the right price on the market, were John Gibson in Anaheim. Before he signed the extension, obviously there was a lot of talk about Hellebuck from Winnipeg. UC Saros in Nashville, Jake Allen in Montreal, and one of either Linus Ullmark or Swayman in Boston, right? I think it's pretty safe to say that both Ullmark and Swayman are not available unless someone is willing to literally give them Connor fucking McDavid, or you know what I mean. Given the start that they have had, and given that both Ullmark and Swayman are having excellent seasons yet again, annoyingly, and there was also talk that Boston was working on a long-term extension for Swayman. So I don't think that either one of those is going anywhere. Maybe Ullmark at some point, but probably not going to be this year. So then that brings us to John Gibson, who was probably the second or third most talked about behind Saros and Hellebuck. He is currently having a fantastic season in Anaheim. In the 10 games that he has played, he is 4-5. But I mean, that's win-loss is not with a .929 save percentage, and he is currently saved 7.3 goals above average. Now, above average is different than above expected. Above average is just you literally just take the number of shots that they have faced and compare it against the average for the league, for the rest of the league, using those number of shots, right? If we look at saved above expected, he is still at near the top of the league. He is at 6.4 goals saved above expected on the season. So, was it maybe a mistake to not trade for Gibson? Possibly, but again, we don't know. We don't know what Anaheim was asking for. Where they were asking for a Dawson Mercer or a Luke Hughes or I'm sure Alexander Holtz would have been involved in there in some way, shape, or form. And the jury is still kind of out on him at this point. So, there's Jordan Binnington in St. Louis is having a great year. I don't like him. I just don't like him as a person. He has a really bad history on the ice of kind of throwing temper tantrums, and he's a problem. But again, he's saved 10.2 goals above expected. He's second in the league behind Thatcher Demko in Vancouver, who's having an insane season to start. So I just don't think that. I think that it almost feels to me, and you tell me how you feel on this, but it feels to me like the market for goalies is kind of closed at the moment. Like anybody that is worth getting is either on a team that has realistic expectations of either making the playoffs or like in Anaheim's case, kind of like being last year's Devils, where they're playing with house money, right? Where they were expected to maybe be better than the year before, but no one really expected them to make the playoffs and whatever. You're certainly not getting either of the goalies in Boston at this point.
Saros
too
expensive.
Well, and that's the other thing. The Devils are right up against the cap. A guy like Saros, you'd have to make the money work, which means you're going to have to send out money, or you're going to have to get Nashville to retain salary, which is going to cost you more. In terms of draft picks or prospects or NHL ready players, or both, or all of them, you know? I don't know if the Devils have an immediate solution to this goaltending problem, because I don't think the solution is internal, and I don't think it's realistic at this point to get anybody in a trade. And for those of you saying, "Oh, we should have never gotten rid of Mackenzie Blackwood," well, he started out the season very hot in San Jose, and now granted, that is a probably historically bad San Jose team in front of him, and I understand that. But he's still got an .898 save percentage, and he is sitting at he's given up 2.2 goals more than expected. So he's not having a great season. He had, I think, a lot of his original numbers are being propped up by that 50 save effort that he had against, was it Colorado, I think? That insane game where they lost 2-1, but he had like 50 or 51 saves in that game.
He's also got that injury history where we know that he sometimes might play well, but it fluctuates. At least from the Blackwood that I've watched, it fluctuates. You never really knew which one you were going to get.
And that's exactly.
And I know we're not necessarily any better with V or Schmidt at the moment.
But... And that's exactly the problem that we're dealing with right now, is inconsistent goaltending. One night V will look pretty good, and the next night he'll give up.
It's not even night on night; it's period on period. That's point.
That too. One period he looked like, again tonight. I thought he had a great second period. He looked really good in the second period and the start of the third, and then it just fell apart. I mean, I think at this point,
I don't know what the solution is.
I don't know what the solution is either, because one of two things is going to have to happen. Either the Devils are going to have to give up somebody that they really don't want to give up in a trade, or they're going to have to try and figure this out internally. Am I confident in Nico Dawes coming in and saving our goaltending situation when he's healthy? No, I'm not. He didn't look particularly great in the NHL when we did see him. And I know he's very young, and he's still got a lot of time to improve and to get his game to where it needs to be an NHL goaltender.
But also hip injuries in a goaltender.
Yeah, hip and groin. Like you said with Mackenzie, like his issues were groin issues. Hip and groin are like the two worst types of injuries for goalies. They're also the two most common.
I mean, it's pretty unnatural stances that they have to get into.
Yeah.
Butterfly.
I don't know,
but
man.
Yeah. Speaking of periods and things, and things not being consistent from one period to the next, that's another thing that's been plaguing just the team in general. Is it feels like we haven't played the entire 60 minutes.
Pittsburgh was probably the first game we played all year that was a complete 60-minute game. Where start to finish, it was a complete, solid, all-around good effort. And you're right.
The first win that's actually felt like a true win. It's the first time that we've played full 60. Yeah.
They've talked about it on the broadcast. Players have talked about it, how the team needs to be better at playing a full 60 minutes. First, the game is 3 periods long.
Every single interview.
And it's still a problem. It was a problem again tonight. I thought despite the fact that the game was tied 2-2 for a large chunk of the game once those 4 goals were out of the way, I thought the Devils deserved to win tonight against the Rangers. I thought through most of the game, despite missing Timo and despite missing Nico, that the Devils were, I wouldn't want to say the better team necessarily, but they certainly weren't being outplayed by the Rangers. It felt like a pretty evenly played game. And once again, it was just goaltending. Like, it's very frustrating when you watch the team finally starting to like very slowly kind of get these annoying issues out of the way. And, but we're still losing games 5-3. Right now we're at a pace where we need to score 5-6 goals a night just to win. Which, the Devils are certainly capable of scoring 5 or 6 goals in a night. They're one of the most offensively talented teams in the league. But you can't. I mean, it's quickly becoming a Edmonton Oilers situation, right? Where the team is talented as all hell on offense, but they got to win games 6-5, 5-4.
And this last 7 games, we haven't got more than 3. No, sorry, we did get the 5 in Pittsburgh.
We got the 5 in Pittsburgh.
Chicago one was also a 4, but generally it's only 2 or 3 games a night.
Yeah, well, I mean that's the product, I think, of Nico
Games,
and Jack.
Goals.
That's the product of Nico and Jack being out. Like, I'm not too worried about the offense at the moment, but you can't go through these goaltending and defensive lapses when the team's only scoring like at a pace of like basically roughly 3 goals a game, which is not bad. Like 3 goals a game is not horrible. It's not. It wouldn't put you in the top 10 at the moment, but it's probably like middle of the pack, right? Offense, but that's just how bad the goaltending has been.
I mean, we are middle of the pack in the NHL anyway. We're 19th.
Well, I mean, at that point, you're basically bottom third. You're basically really close to being bottom third. But again, there's teams like Carolina that I'm like still 99% sure are going to make the playoffs that are kind of struggling right now as well, going through very similar.
Carolina's
issues.
actually worse than us with goaltending at the moment.
Yeah, but yeah, I mean, I guess at the moment, if you can't get a goaltender, or the market for goaltenders is kind of at the moment. I mean, do you target a defensive trade? I mean, let's talk about maybe what we could do about the defense. We know that Calgary is basically a dumpster fire. We know that they are probably going to be blowing it up very soon. We know that supposedly Zadorov requested a trade. And there have been reports that Tanev, who is also a defenseman for Calgary, that Toronto is potentially trying to get both of them in kind of like a package deal. And I've also heard that Calgary is trying to shop them as a kind of like a package deal. That basically whatever team is just trying to get Zadorov is probably going to get Zadorov and Tanev. I don't know how well that will work out for Calgary because they could probably get more for if they traded them individually, but whatever. Anyway, Zadorov's a big dude, good defenseman. He's 6'6". He's a big guy, really in your face, mean defenseman, not afraid to throw the body around. On paper, it's exactly what the Devils need. But
cap hit is 3.75.
Yeah, his cap hit's not terrible. We would have to still move some money to make it work. But you figure. I mean, I don't know what Calgary is asking for Zadorov, but if you could find a way to send Smith back, and obviously it's going to take way more than Brendan Smith, but as part of, there's always multiple pieces in these kind of deals, right? There's usually multiple players, picks, usually multiple picks, all that kind of stuff. So, ideally, maybe you move Smith out in a Zadorov deal. I'm generally not the kind of person that likes to do these mock trades because I'm not an NHL GM and I don't think like an NHL GM. So I don't pretend to the extent of my trading ability is basically whatever I can get away with in NHL 24, the video game.
Oh, look, there's more than I can do. So I'm sort of sitting back and going, I don't know this part.
But I mean, you have to imagine if we're gonna get a player like Zadorov, I mean, I would have to imagine at this point, Holtz is on the table, and
Oh, for sure.
would that be a backbreaker for us? Of course not. But
Or Mercer or something.
oh yeah, see, I'm still really against trading Mercer.
I'm not saying we should, but
especially
he's
given
not signed.
especially given the Nico and Jack injuries this year. And I know that Mercer usually plays wing. He's not really a true center, but he can play center, and having him on the team, even when he's not putting up the 60-point pace that I think we were kind of hoping that he would be this year. He's still a really valuable player, and he can play just about any position amongst the forward group, and he can move up and down the lineup. He can play first line, he can play third line. I'm still against certainly in a Zadorov or a Tanev trade. I don't want to be shipping out Mercer. I think that would be an insane overpay.
But I'm just saying they might ask for something.
Oh, well, I mean, they can ask all they want, but we know that Fitz isn't super keen on getting rid of Mercer, considering the fact that the reports last year were that the Sharks really wanted him, and Fitz and company were adamant that Mercer would not be a part of any trade deal. So or at least not any trade deal for Timo Meier. So I don't know what you send back. Like I said, ideally you send Smith back. Obviously, a first round pick is almost certainly going to be involved. The Devils have a first round pick tied up in the Timo Meier trade still, because if we make the Eastern Conference Finals this year, which is looking increasingly less likely as the season goes on, then that second round pick turns into a first round pick. So, but I mean, again, if we make the Eastern Conference Finals, I'm fine with that. Send San Jose that pick, all day, every day. But we don't. What I'm saying is we don't know what the status of that pick is going to be yet. So you can't just say, well, just trade this year's first round pick. Well, we can't yet because we don't know. There's still contingencies on that trade. So yeah, still you have to imagine a first round pick. Like I said, probably Holtz. I would imagine that Calgary would be stupid to not ask for Nemec. Whether they get him or not is a different story, but I think they'd be stupid to not ask.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know if that really fixes the problems, though. Does it shore up the defense? Yeah, on paper, sure it does. But it doesn't matter if the goaltending is still letting in 2 goals above expected every game, or a goal and a half above expected every game, I don't know.
And I know you want guys to be blocking shots and things like that as well. But you don't want the players in front of the net, in front of the goalie, to essentially try and be goalies and block shots, because they're going to end up getting injured themselves eventually. They keep getting hit by pucks going 90 miles an hour. I know it's not necessarily that fast.
You know what's funny about that is some guys seem to get injured at the wind blowing in a certain direction, and then you have other guys who lead the league in blocked shots almost every year and are never hurt.
Yeah.
And it's just funny how different
bodies. Yeah, it's really strange.
It's funny how different people are built.
Me, I landed on my knee in August and badly bruised the bone of my kneecap, and then a week ago it was mostly healed, and I slightly landed on it with my knee and shin pads on, and it is currently it is super swollen. It is still super bruised. My body just apparently gets injured at the drop of the hat. I get bruised really easily. So everyone's bodies are different, and I can understand that, but it's just one of those things that's frustrating when people seem to get injured more than others.
Yeah.
For seemingly nothing.
I would love Zadorov on this team. I get the feeling that it's not going to happen. I get the feeling that Toronto is going to end up with him or something. I've heard that Toronto has been really, really aggressive in their pursuit of Zadorov and Tanev. They apparently want both. And
I haven't heard anything about us going after him.
Well, there were initial reports that the Devils were amongst the teams that were very interested or seriously interested in Zadorov, but there hasn't been much since then. And, I try not to put too much stock in how much people are talking about the Leafs because people talk about the Leafs no matter what. So
they also apparently said more talks will come after the international series, after they return from that.
Oh yeah, that's right, because they were in Sweden. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
So I don't know. We'll see. Maybe Fitz can make a move there, but I still don't think that truly solves the problem. But I don't know what we do about the goaltending at this point, other than hope that Nico and Timo can come back swiftly and that this offense can get clicking and we can just power our way through it until something later in the season develops. Maybe Anaheim will fall off. Maybe they're having a decent start and then they fall off midway through the season and then Gibson becomes available. Not to say that Gibson isn't available currently. I'm sure he's available for the right price, but when they're more likely to part with him because it's clear they're not because if Anaheim if January rolls around or February rolls around and Anaheim is still pushing for a wild card spot, they're not trading Gibson unless they get an absolute haul for him. Obviously that the moment that Hellebuck re-signed his extension, that was over. I wouldn't want him at $8+ million anyway.
No.
I don't know what the solution is, but the goaltending is it's gone past being concerning, and now it's a problem that's going to need to be addressed if this team wants to be serious about making a cup run this year.
Yeah, agreed.
Yeah. Been a rough week for the Devils. Let's see. In the last 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 games, we are 2-5.
Yeah, 2-5-0.
2-5-0.
8-7-1 in the season. Currently 5th in the Metro and 19th in the NHL. So, not great.
No,
is that even wild card?
No, we're out of a playoff spot, I believe, after tonight. I'd have to double check.
Yeah.
I'd have to double check the standings, but we were just barely hanging on to a playoff spot after the Pittsburgh game, and we may have lost that spot. Again, it's early. We're 16 games into the season, so it's not the end of the world. There's still plenty of time to turn it around. But it's got to happen. It's got to happen soon because Elliot Friedman has quoted this stat a few times. And it's something like, if by the end of November, if a team is 4 or more points out of a playoff, so basically after Thanksgiving, if a team is more than 4 or more points out of a playoff spot, there's a 15% chance historically that they'll make the playoffs. Yeah. So, if we're just looking at odds, if the Devils are 4 or more points out of a playoff spot by the end of this month, the chances of them making the playoffs are slim. And again, we've seen crazier things. So just in 2019, the St. Louis Blues were dead last in the league in December, and then they went on this insane run. I think at one point they were 20. It was 25-2-1 over some crazy stretch, or 20. It was they had won 25 out of 28 or 30 games or something like that. And then they won the Stanley Cup. So crazier things have happened. Look at Florida last year. Snuck into the playoffs by 1 point, basically right down to the last game of the season, and ended up all the way in the Stanley Cup final.
Yeah.
But that was on the back of really solid goaltending in the playoffs, which I am not confident that we will get. Yeah, exactly. So, we'll move on. I don't want to make this whole podcast totally negative, but there hasn't been a lot positive to talk about. Other than, Jack looks like he's ready to just get right back into the scoring race. He had a goal and assist tonight.
Immediately got a goal.
Yeah, I don't think there's going to be. Doesn't look like there's going to be a 10-game stretch where he is very slow to get back into it, like he was hit the first time around with his other shoulder injury. So he had a goal and assist tonight. Unfortunately, it was in a losing effort. But I don't know. Do you have any other thoughts on the goaltending and defense and all that?
No, not so much, other than also at what point do you start looking at coaching and whether or not Lindy's the right fit? I know that no one's been saying fire Lindy this year. I think we've all been somewhat scared off it after jumping in too quickly last year. But at what point do you start looking at that?
I've thought about this a lot because I try really hard to not be the immediately jump on firing the coach bandwagon, especially after last year. You know, I mean, we started off slow, and then everyone knows the fire Lindy chant started, and then the Devils went on a huge run, and then it was sorry Lindy, and the Devils looked great for basically the rest of the year. The Devils were also had a remarkably healthy season, all things considered, last year.
Yes,
so
we did.
That certainly helped, and we also had league average goaltending.
Yeah, I was gonna say that's when we went on our 21-game winning streak with V just
21-game winning streak, huh?
Was it? What was it? Not 21, sorry.
No, that would have been an NHL record. It was 13.
Not 21. 13. I don't know what I'm talking about. Sorry. It is late. I am tired, and my brain is not thinking properly. We went on a winning streak, and V was kind of playing out of his mind for those games. So I think we've kind of jumped back to reality now.
I think I don't even know if this is a regression at the mean. This feels like just a full-blown regression. At basically every, and again, I'm a little bit less critical on the defense as I probably would have been if we had recorded this episode last week, but because things have started to improve a little bit there. But yeah, in terms of coaching, I was originally going to go into this earlier, but I thought maybe it might go on too long. Maybe depending on how this week goes for next week's episode, maybe we'll spend an entire segment on Lindy himself and what it means, but what the Devils should do going forward. But I don't, like I said, I'm generally not on the jump on the fire the coach bandwagon immediately, but yeah, I do see signs with this team that I think are coaching. Are coaching issues. The things like mixing the lines up in the middle of a game, but then when everything is said and done, it's like the same old from game in and game out. Players like Holtz, I think, being unfairly punished for play that isn't necessarily on them. And guys like Smith getting pass after pass after pass. And again, I know that there are people out there that are like, yeah, but the depth situation is different with the forwards than it is with the defense. But really, at this point, it's not. We're deeper on defense at this particular stage. Now that Miller is back, it's still the offense that where the majority of the injuries are. It's still Jack just got back tonight. Nico's still out for, an undetermined amount of time. Nosek got re-injured tonight, so that's another fourth-line depth player that's going to be out for we don't know how long. And Timo is out for, has missed at least one game now. So, those. I guess what I'm going to say about this is I'm going to hold my thoughts on Lindy until. And I don't want to say that like one player alone is what I'm going to hinge my opinion of Lindy on. But how this team is structured going forward on the ice in terms of how, what Lindy puts out there with now the defense starting to look like it's slowly improving and got healthier with the addition of Miller. If Smith is still out there costing us goals or causing, problems for us, and he's still night in and night out playing every single night, and he's not getting scratched, I think I'm going to have some harsher words for Lindy. Right now, I'm in that stage where I'm not quite ready to say that we need a coaching change, but he's on the hot seat for me again. And the seat that he's sitting on is getting warmer and warmer day by day.
I will say, not necessarily whether I think he will go or not, but at this point, from my predictions earlier in the year, I predicted that V would end up being our starting goalie. At this point, he is. My other prediction was that this would be Lindy's last year as a coach in the Devils.
Oh, God. Wouldn't that be some shit? We just signed him to a 3-year, multi-year. We don't know the exact number of years, but yeah.
If he continues, or if it seems like the issue is coaching and they end up getting rid of him, then that prediction would come true. And the only benefit to that, if my predictions are all coming true, would then be that I also predicted that Jack would have a 50-goal year.
Yeah, well, that's probably off the table, unfortunately, with him missing 5 games. But hey, you never know.
I agree. I don't think it's on the table. I also don't necessarily think Lindy's gonna go. But look, if my predictions are coming true, then at least there's that one to look forward to.
I'm also not super confident because if we fire Lindy, then almost certainly Travis Green takes over as interim head coach. And although he has done an amazing job with the power play this year, our power play is still, I believe, even after tonight, first in the league. Actually, we had a power play goal, so it should still be first in the league.
And they, the Rangers were, I think, second or
they were
something.
second. They were tied second with another team at like 33%. We're at like 37 or 38.
But we killed them a couple of times.
Well, yeah, but I think they still went 1 for 3, which basically just holds their number right at where it was at. But anyway, I've lost my train of thought. I was talking about
Travis
the power
Green.
play. Oh, Travis Green. Yeah, sorry. He's done a wonderful job with the power play, and the power play looks fantastic. But his time as head coach in Vancouver was not great, and I don't think that a lot of Vancouver Canuck fans have a lot of nice things to say about him as a coach. Not as a person, but just as a head coach. So, again, I'm not saying that Lindy. I'm at the point where I think Lindy needs to be fired. I think it's still way too early for that, but I think it's fair to start thinking about it as a potential issue. And
Oilers have done it now.
Yeah, well, that's a whole we could that could be like that could be a whole episode on that. That situation is crazy. That's a situation where I don't think it was Woodcroft's fault, but the situation was so bad that you had to do something. And you're certainly not going to trade Draisaitl or McDavid. So, I mean, you fire the coach because the coach is almost always the first, right? They're almost always the first to take the blame for, especially when you have players like Draisaitl and McDavid. The coach is going to be the one to take the blame, even if it wasn't necessarily his fault. And he will find a job elsewhere in the NHL very soon. I do not think. I mean, what's crazy, I know it's the Devils podcast, but I want to mention something about that. You want to hear something crazy about that situation? Jay Woodcroft is the all-time winningest coach in Oilers history if you go by winning percentage. Not total number of wins, but winning percentage. He's the all-time winningest coach in that team's history. Now, he was only their coach for just under 3 seasons. It's like 2 and 2/3 seasons or whatever. But in that time, the Oilers, obviously they've had their defensive and goaltending issues, but that's kind of more on the GM, I think, than it is the coach. It's just crazy that he is the winningest goaltender, the winningest coach in Oilers history in terms of winning percentage, and he's fired. But I mean, if the Devils had started 2-8 or whatever it was, like the Oilers had started and just looked dreadful all the way around, Lindy may have gotten fired. I don't know. I don't know. We don't really know what Fitz's how much of a leash Lindy has with Fitz yet, because just when his seat was starting to get really hot last year, the Devils went on a crazy run and made it to the second round of the playoffs. So, yeah.
Maybe we need to bring back the fire Lindy chance, not because we want him to be fired, but because it's gonna get us into another win streak like that.
All right, Devils fans, you know what to do. Next home game, just start chanting Fire Lindy, and then the Devils will rack off a 13-game winning streak and will make the playoffs with ease, and all will be right in the world again.
Oh, if only that's how it worked.
I know. Yeah, I don't know. We'll see what happens the next week or so, but sitting at 8-7-1 at this stage, and the Rangers sitting at where they are at, is not ideal, and goaltending's been a problem. So that might be the title of this episode. Goaltending's a problem.
Yeah. Speaking of, we are an hour 20 minutes into this episode, roughly.
Yeah,
I think it's about time to probably wrap things up.
That happens when you haven't recorded in 16 days.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't really have much else. Our next game is on the
22nd. We've got a 3-day break.
Yeah, we have a 2-day break. 2 days.
3-day
break.
break.
2 days in between games.
It's 3 days, but it's just rolled over past midnight for you. That's why.
Oh, there's no games on the 21st. That's why. You're right. It is 3 days. My bad. Chris can't.
That's all right.
Chris can't read. Apparently, I didn't realize that there were no games on the 21st.
I'm like, I put them on my calendar so that I could see it visually, and it's 3 days.
Yeah, that's a Tuesday. That's weird that there's no games on the 21st. Interesting. Well, anyway, all right, yeah. So we have a 3-day break. With the next game that we play is Wednesday, the 22nd at 7 p.m. Eastern, and that is in Detroit against the Red Wings. We did beat them earlier the first game of the season. So we'll see, but I don't think Nico is going to be back for that game, but hopefully Timo is, and we will we'll see how that goes. I don't know how much else. It's been a frustrating week, but hopefully we can get it turned around. Some things I think got to give at some point, but until then, we are on this wild ride, the Schrodinger's Devils.
Yeah.
I don't know what to call this team at this moment. I tweeted the other day that I don't know what this team is. Like, 1 minute they look like last year's Devils, the next minute it's like you want to pull your hair out.
Yeah, it's incredibly frustrating at times. But we just got to hope that once the injuries have sorted themselves out, which hopefully we don't get any more, that they'll come back to form maybe.
Yeah, I mean, Nosek getting hurt tonight is, not a devastating blow, but it hurts your depth. And again, depth is what wins Stanley Cups. So,
yeah. But again, we don't necessarily know how long he's going to be out. It could have just been for the rest of this game. He might be back.
Hopefully.
In the next game.
Hopefully. All right, well, do you want to hit us with this week's Guess That Devil?
Sure. So this Devil was drafted 24th overall by the New Jersey Devils in 1985. Don't know why I keep doing that year.
Oh.
And played 4 seasons with the Devils before requesting a trade. Was dubbed a rookie sensation, playing a major role in helping the Devils to make it to the 1988 conference finals, and was the first Devil to appear on the cover of the Hockey Digest.
It's funny, I already knew who this was the moment you said drafted 24th in 1985.
I'm sure.
Because I was thinking about that. That draft, and I am pretty sure I know who the Devils drafted that year. I try and keep track of at least Devils first round picks every year, and trying to keep a fairly decent memory of all of our first round picks, even if they don't pan out. But yeah, I think I got this one. Not 100% sure, but I think I got this one.
You've been pretty good at them so far, and I'm sure other people that know about our first round picks will probably get this one right off the bat.
Probably. And we will tweet it out, and like we said, well, it wasn't last week, but in last episode, if you guys want to reply to that tweet with either a picture of the player or just the name, that's fine. Go for it. I do not look at tweets that have anything to do with the Guess That Devil, so I don't get influenced by anybody's answer. So, and we will tweet that out because Georgia will not forget this.
Yes, week. I will do it. I promise.
You know what you should do? Just schedule it right now for whenever you want it to go out.
I know I always intend to do it after, but then I always need to go pee or whatever, so... Sorry for the TMI.
That's okay. All right, well, I guess we will wrap that up. We apologize that we don't have a more upbeat episode this week, but... It's been a rough couple of weeks, so we will see if the Devils can turn
I think
around.
Devils fans will understand why it's not upbeat.
Yeah. Well, we've all been experiencing the trauma together, right? So, with that being said, you can find us on social media at devilsdownunder on most platforms. Specifically on Twitter/X, it is at DDU_pod. Since we were a little late to the game with this podcast, so, at Devils Down Under was not available. Anyway, at DDU_pod on Twitter. You can also find us on YouTube at youtube.com/@devilsdownunderpodcast. And that is where we also post every episode, if that is your cup of tea, if you prefer to listen on YouTube while you're working from home or whatever you're doing. And we can be found on pretty much all the other social media as well. We still are not super active on that. I think we're kind of waiting to see... how to. Well, not so much how to, just we're giving the podcast, I think, a few months to breathe before we start going crazy on other social media. I do want to start posting on Threads and Instagram as much as I hate Meta, but feels you're going to get your podcast out there, you kind of can't avoid social media. So we're going to have to start doing some legwork with that. But yeah, you can also send us an email at devilsdownunderpodcast@gmail.com for your answers for this week's this week's Guess That Devil. Questions, comments, concerns. If you want to gripe about Lindy Ruff, the coaching, the Devils, if you just need to
goaltending,
if you just need to send us some frustrated memes, yeah, goaltending, go for it.
Or if you disagree with us, we obviously have our own opinions, and we're not always right. So if you have alternating opinions, then let us know.
Let us know. We will highlight them on the podcast, and we will talk about them. And I promise that we will not besmirch or talk down to you if we disagree with your opinion. But if you guys want to shout us out, we will give you a little mention on the podcast. And if you have anything to contribute, then we'll talk about it. So feel free to reach out to us, and we will certainly entertain it. So unless you have anything else, I think that pretty much wraps it up for us this week.
No, I think that's it.
Alrighty, Devils fans, we appreciate so much listening. English is apparently very hard for me tonight. We appreciate you guys listening very much, and there will not be a 2+ week break between this week's episode and next. We will get next week's episode out on time, barring some sort of catastrophic emergency. So we thank you guys so much for listening, and we will talk to you guys next week.
Bye, guys.